Hold on. So, so a number of years ago, I was modeling for just for a session with an artist who liked to sketch portraits, and so I went and got my portrait sketch, sat on the couch, and he drew my face a bunch, and it's part of the conversation that we were having. I said something about how I'd read once. I thought I'd read that Richard Avedon liked to work with models until they were basically just sort of wiped out, like they're standing there under the hot lights and everything, and just keep them there until they're tired enough that they drop whatever sort of character armor facade they come in with, and then you get something closer to the real them. And I wish I could remember how the guy said it, but he says basically that he didn't think people were putting up these kind of facades, that people were just walking around presenting themselves. And it seemed really strange to me, the idea just that the people weren't. And because I certainly am to some extent, and now that I have come to the conclusion that I'm autistic, I realize even more how much I was doing, back then that I wasn't even aware of. I sort of wonder if it's maybe some people just don't, and I suspect these people are more mentally healthy than the people who put up the frame. Though that's a chicken or the egg situation. Like, do they not put up the facade? I said frame earlier. Do they not put up the facade because they're mentally healthy, or are they mentally healthy because they're not burning time and energy doing this to themselves? And I sort of think it's one of those, it might be one of those things kind of like recently, I guess there was an article online about people not having interior monologues, which turns out some people do, some people don't. I don't know how that breaks down percentage wise, but the impression I get is that up until they read an article like that, everyone just assumes that everyone else is doing the thing they're doing. Like like if you have an internal monologue, which I certainly do, then you just think, well, everyone's got this internal monologue talking to them about what's going on, narrating what they do, etc. And the people who don't have that just have no reason to think that other people are different from them. I remember one person specifically said that whenever there was like a voiceover in a movie representing a character's internal monologue, they just totally thought that was an artistic device, an invention for the purpose of telling a story. And I was about to say it's not, but in a sense, it exists to tell myself a story about myself, which is unfortunately a negative story as often as not. But it's so it makes me think just about these images that we present to the world, whether we believe them or not. I think the problem is often that we do believe them, whereas having the ability to mask, as I say, if you can mask consciously, like if you can go into a job interview, I'm speaking someone who is autistic or otherwise would naturally present a persona that is not ideal for a situation like a job interview. If you can go into a job interview and mask in the sense of like, oh, I'm going to act like, a professional person who knows how to do interviews and get jobs, and, the kind of person you will give a job to even though they don't need a job, or especially because they don't need a job because they're not desperate. So that kind of masking consciously for a purpose in short bursts, I think can be a very useful skill. It's when you do it all the time that you burn yourself out, and it's when you don't know you're doing it and you have I was just thinking also of the term false consciousness, which the concept comes from Marx and Engels. And my rendition of it, based on a little bit of reading, the way I interpret it is having this consciousness with aims and goals and whatnot that are not your own, that, hello Prince, that do not actually serve your interests, but you think they do. So you spend your life, spend all this time and energy working towards someone else's goals, working toward the goals of this fictional you that you've created that you don't even realize is fictional. And that's false consciousness, and that's masking, and I'm trying to avoid, hello bird, trying to avoid being ruled by that. And I've got a headache, so I'm going to stop.